Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Max Cohen. This is our initial reaction show, our full-time show after Fulham's 2-0 loss to Manchester City at Craven Cottage. The season ends with Fulham ending 11th. Disappointing end to the season. Disappointing match to end the season, and I'll be sharing my initial reaction. I'm a little bit upset the way this match ended. We'll talk about that in this quick episode. Before I do anything else, I want to welcome Max back to the show. It's been a little bit. Max, how you doing?
Russ, 11th in the league. This season promised so much at some points, and it does feel very anticlimactic to be here in the bottom half of the table. That being said, I think that the fact, we were never worried about relegation at all,
No.
and that's a privilege. We have to remember, we can't take that for granted too much, just given the history of this club in recent years. But I mean, we thought we were going to get Europe at some time, and we're finishing below Brentford,
Yep.
below Bournemouth, below Brighton, last in the mini league. Basically, we had set up for ourselves.
Yep.
So just disappointment more than anything. But I do want to inject some optimism by saying that we were fortunate to never ever be dragged into relegation, and we finished above the likes of Spurs, of Man United, of West Ham, of supposed big clubs, and we should remember that too.
It's not a bad season. I'm not going to look at this as a poor season. Absolutely not. I'm going to look this as a positive season. It ended not great, which is put it to you that way. But if you look at it overall, to end 11th, to beat the points total is an accomplishment. The victories that they had are memorable that we're always going to remember. So how could it be a terrible season? I will go back and do a look back at the season in a couple of episodes from now, and I can go into more detail. But I do not look at this season as a failure. They're 11th. They were never involved in a relegation battle at all, and they had these signature wins. So there are some good things and bad things to look at. Like I said, it was a box of chocolate season for Fulham. You never knew what you were going to get. And unfortunately today, I think he got the ref. And I'll share my thoughts because I think he's a factor in this 2-0 victory. It was almost like back here, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. I could go back to the best basketball players. We would call it the Jordan rule, where he would get all the calls. Larry Bird would get all the calls. Max, Manchester City got all the calls. Let's just leave it at that. We'll talk about that, especially at the end of the match, where I just think that it was a very one-sided called match by the ref, and that's disappointing. But that's not why they lost. Manchester City are a much better side, and they deserved to win the match. That's the bottom line. But it was a disappointing way to end the season, definitely. So before we get into breaking down the match quickly, like I said, we'll probably go for about 20 minutes to a half hour. Give me your thoughts on the starting 11. What did you think about that before the match began?
I know Obi was obviously the biggest thing for me because he's someone who Silva plays all the time. Of course, no Bassi as well, Cuenca. Those are the two very big omissions there. I like that Adama was starting. I think he was a man of the match. We'll get to that later. I thought he was excellent. He's the only player who makes something happen consistently every match he plays, so I was glad to see that. But yeah, it was odd to not have Iwobi in the starting lineup given how much he's played this season, but I think it was the right call. Bassi was perhaps a very big miss given I think Cuenca got really outplayed for the first goal.
He did.
And Kearney, and of course Kearney starting.
Kearney started.
A lot of questions. What did that mean? It was his last game for Fulham?
I don't know.
Potentially not. Who knows?
Right. And if that is his last match, I want to just say best of luck to Tom Kearney. But again, we don't know that yet. And I am glad that he got a chance to play today. And I thought that he gave it his all, and he has for the club, and that should definitely be discussed. Like I said, when we go through reviewing the season, and we'll talk about Tom Kearney, and he's had an incredible career for Fulham Football Club. We'll see what happens beyond that. But the starting 11, I was a little bit surprised. I thought against Man City, he might go to Berger and Lukic play a little bit more defensive, but he decided he wanted a little bit more control, went with Kearney. But I was surprised that he started Pereira. and didn't start Sessignon. So I had some questions. It was not the lineup I would have picked, Max, but that's what he went with. And but we had a lot of ways to change the game in the second half. I thought that they were able to do that, just didn't go their way. So let's go to the first half. And I think it's safe to say, especially before the goal, it was all Man City, Max. It was basically, as the announcers were saying that we watched, it was inevitable. It was inevitable that they were going to score. That's all I kept hearing. Inevitable. It's going to happen. Well, it did happen. And it was a goal by Gundogan, who I actually think is a cheat too. And I'll talk about that when we get to the second half. But he does score a good goal. But do you put this more to being a good goal, or do you blame it more on Fulham? Let's talk about the goal in the first half from Manchester City.
I mean, the bicycle kick is insane, Russ. I mean, that kind of skill. Listen, Jimenez almost did at the end. And I think Jimenez's that degree of difficulty was a bit higher. And it's certainly nothing what Muniz did against Sheffield United last season. But let's be honest, that was a great goal from Gundogan. Very few players can contort their body like that off the bar and in, especially with a player on the line. I mean, he had to get it by Anderson, so really good goal. However, I have to point the finger at our defending in the build-up, and I think Robinson gets beat way too easily on the header by Matias Nunez.
Yep.
And then, the way he just breezes by Cuenca, who's way too tight. Not what you want your center back to be doing, committing in there and just getting easily bodied by a player who shouldn't be doing that. So that to me was a real issue. I think Leno makes a really good save, but Gundogan's first to the rebound. So you have to give credit to the finish. But again, Robinson's weak. Cuenca's naive to dive in there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Very good analysis, Max. And it kind of epitomized how the match began. And I would say probably 30 minutes into it, you're thinking, just hold on and be out of the half down 1-0. That's what I was thinking. But they had different plans because Fulham actually had some very good chances for the equalizer in that first half. You had the shot by Harry Wilson earlier. Then you had the whole situation with Kearney. I thought that was in the back of the net. Again,
Same.
we're watching it. I thought that was the equalizer. Very close. And then at the end of the half, you have another opportunity from Harry Wilson. And again, I thought that had a very good chance to go in the back of the net, but it was a nice save. And at times, Fulham battled in that first half. But what do you make of Fulham's chances in that first half? Missed opportunities?
100%. I do want to talk more about the performance because we gave City too much respect in the opening spell of this match. And then we realized actually we can attack them and they're not the City of yesteryear. And I think that was a mistake we made by sitting off them and letting them come on us. We played into their hands, but when we press against them, we actually created arguably better chances. I mean, the Wilson shot saved, the second Wilson shot, which is saved and almost turned in by Pereira in the rebound. And of course the Kearney shot, which looking back on the replay, actually, it's a bit harsh on him, but he should score, Russ. There's a lot of that goal free that Ederson leaves to his left, to Kearney's right. And Kearney scores a goal like that all the time. I mean, the strike he had away at Spurs was very similar. He should put that in. So we actually end the half, arguably the stronger side, pushing on for an equalizer. And I don't know. I mean, you think, why didn't we just start like that? We played against Liverpool on the front foot. So, yeah, especially coming off how poorly City played against Palace in the FA Cup final. I know the game meant more to them than it did to us, but I wish we would have started with more initiative because we showed that City is not some kind of perfect behemoth of a team. We could actually take the fight to them.
And I think we did. Like I said, later on in that first half, I thought Fulham created some very good chances. And when you look at it, maybe their chances were better than the ones that Man City had, even though Man City dominated, right? They did. Let's call it what it is. But it's not the same Man City team. And ask yourself this, besides the penalty that he scored on, what did Haaland offer?
Nothing.
What did he offer?
Haaland is as
was he there? Did he play?
No, he was terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a non-factor.
Okay, so say what you want, but he offered absolutely nothing. And that's also, you got to give some credit to Fulham's defense a little bit, but but he offered very little in that first half. And then, of course, like we're saying, then you're there and you're thinking 1-0 at the half, missed opportunity. And I'm just thinking, just find a way to get a goal, and then we could see where we could go in the second half. So that'll get us to transition to the second half, Max. And before we talk about the penalty for Man City, I thought Fulham, again, were creating opportunities, made substitutions, brought on Iwobi, brought on Smith Rowe. And actually, I thought Harry Wilson was lively, but they just could not get the equalizer. And that will lead us to talk about the penalty. Now, I want to watch this back. You and I were talking about it before the show began. I actually really thought that this was a dive. You said you thought that he got him. And I don't know about that. But again, I'll watch it back. This is our initial reaction. But at the time, and I know that VAR looked at it, but the view I got did not look like it was a penalty. But it was given, and it was checked by VAR. And then you have Holland scoring the goal. What did you make of this situation? I will put this on Lukic for putting himself in this situation to let Gundogan do what Gundogan did. Regardless of if he got him, he created it. This was a goal created by Gundogan.
Yeah, this was a real difference of opinion because I watched and I didn't think there was any debate. I thought it was clear Lukic clipped him, dove in. There's no, I mean, he got nowhere near the ball.
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
But the way it looked to me, it looked like Lukic just kicked the back of his foot and just was overly aggressive in a situation where you can't do that. You can't dive in wrong side of the ball. And it wasn't even like Gundogan was, I mean, it wasn't like that close to goal. He didn't have to do that, is what I'm trying to say, Rossi. He didn't have to intervene.
Okay. So they score the goal. And at this point, Max, the match is pretty much over at this point.
Yeah.
You know, we know it. They're hanging in there, but then this goes in the back of the net, and it's over at that point. It's 2-0. But, and this is a big but, I still don't understand this decision. This is why I said the ref played a role. This is why I was bringing up the Jordan rule, as we would say over here, getting all the calls. Fulham got none of the calls. Manchester City got all the calls. And this is one that I still don't understand. And VAR looked at this. So tell me how this is not a penalty for Fulham. And even the announcers said that Man City were lucky.
Yeah. I mean, the hand is outstretched. It's not actually that close to the ball. Clearly hits the elbow, arm area. It should be a penalty, Russ. There's no doubt about it. And even take that out of the equation, we ended the game on the front foot, which I thought was positive because
yes,
you're right.
We did.
Holland scores a penalty, season over, match over. I was deflated. I expect the players to be deflated too. Credit to them. They attacked. They went for it. Berga should have had a goal. I thought Sessegnon looked really good. And Jimenez had one of the most audacious shots of the season as last play as of the game. So we didn't just wilt away and give up. And I think we deserve credit for doing that because that's what I would have expected from this Fulham team. So credit to them. They played to the end. The refs did us no favors, as you just mentioned.
And I will say that because we're going to be ending this quick episode of Full Time shortly. But before we do that, before we go to man of the match and final thoughts, Max, I'm just going to share my thoughts on how Fulham ended the match. Like you said, they were lively, brought on Josh King, brought on Ryan Sessegnon, were creating opportunities. And that was not the Man City team that I'm used to seeing. That was the Man City of this season. This season, what they were vulnerable. They had a lot to play for here, okay? They absolutely did. To get in the Champions League. They had something on the line. But I want to give the players a lot of credit because I thought they fought to the end. I truly believe that. So I can't really criticize the effort. I'm not going to because I think the effort was there. It just didn't go their way. It was part of this box of chocolate season. Anyways, coming up next, Max and I will share who we thought was man of the match, and then we'll end with our final thoughts. All right, Max, let's finish up this quick episode of Cottage Talk Full Time And let's talk about who was your man of the match.
Adama Traore was my man of the match. Yes, he didn't have the finishing product. That's become par for the course for him in recent weeks, but I think he was at the heart of everything positive. And just the stretch when he picked up the ball basically right outside his own penalty area and dribbled 80 yards, started the attack, brushed off multiple City players, then got called for the foul, which I thought was pretty ridiculous.
Yep.
But that just shows what kind of player he is. And he, as I said earlier, is the only player in our squad who can make something out of nothing. And in a match when we needed that, he was a really, really bright spark. And also, his crossing is so good. And one of his crosses led to that Kearney chance. So really happy with Traore. He signed that extension. I think he needs to be a big part of what we do next season because if we can get him firing on all cylinders, he'll be a really good player.
Okay, so I understand going with Adama Traore. I'm actually going to go with Harry Wilson. I thought Harry Wilson was lively in that first half. I think that he did pick up a knock in the second half, but they actually used him as the outlet in the second half, and I think that's where he might have picked up a knock. But I thought that he created a couple of very good opportunities and was lively when he got the ball. So you had Traore on one side, who was very lively, and then I thought you had Harry Wilson, who was as well. So for me, that's why I want to give him a mention. But I would definitely go with, if you're not going to go with mine and Harry Wilson, I definitely would go with Adama Traore. Okay. Very good, Max. Before we wrap this up, give me your final thoughts on the match, and if you want to share your thoughts overall in the season.
Yeah, the match was disappointing because it's a shame to lose at home. And I think it's a shame to lose to this City squad, which was undoubtedly the worst City squad of the last 10 years, you could say, Russ. Definitely the worst squad of the Pep era.
Yep.
And to think that they did the double over us is a little bit disappointing because if there ever was a chance to beat City, it would have been this time around. Season as a whole, again, I think you can talk about it in terms of first half, second half, and even more specifically, before the Palace quarterfinal and after the Palace quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Because I think we said at the time, losing in that manner at home in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup, that changed the trajectory of the season. And I'm looking at the results now. We lost to Palace on the 29th of March. And since that day, we only won 3 matches. And it's the 25th of May. So 3 months, 3 wins. That was, of course, the big win over Liverpool.
Right.
The poor win over Southampton, who worst team in recent Premier League history, and we barely beat them. And then the great win last week against Brentford. But you look at the last 3 months, that's it. Those are the only wins. That says a lot about what Marco Silva does, is that he respects his squad. He has a very strong, let's say that he's a very set first 11, maybe first 15, small squad. End of the season, we've seen this time and time again. They run out of steam. The squad from 1 to 18 is not good enough. That's not on Marco. That's on the club. And we are left with a whimper at the end. So I don't know, Russ. I don't know how to feel about the season because at one point we were 6th. What you predicted, we finished 7th or 8th.
Yeah, I was wrong.
We thought we could get to the FA Cup semis, maybe in the final, the best chance in recent memory. And from what seems so promising in the late winter, we finished bottom half, and it's not what we thought the season would be.
Okay, very good there, Max. And like I said, I'll go into more detail when we do a review of the season. But just after this match, just giving an overall final thought to the match. Disappointing, like I said, disappointing end to the season. Overall, I think this was a successful season. It was completely a success. You get the points total. We end 11th.
Yeah, that's true.
I predicted 7th, so I got it wrong. And I want to mention this in case Eric Winalda decides to listen to this or watch this, that he, in December, told me, he told his audience on his show, Winalda Talks Football, WTF, that Fulham would end 11th. He said this in December. He was right. I went at him and I said, no, they're going to finish 7th or 8th. So I want to give Eric Winalda credit. I understand where he was coming from. So he got it right. I got it wrong. And he wasn't doing it in a malicious manner. He is someone that I actually respect that knows a lot of football, and he ended up getting it right. So I want to give Eric a lot of credit on that, even though it hurt at the time. And it hurts now because he was right. Fulham end 11th. But what I want to end the show with, because I think that overall the season was a success, and we're going to talk about this going into next season. I'm going to call this, because it's been consistent under Marco Silva, we're going to call it the Fulham fade, because that's what this is. The second halves of every season under Silva, they have faded, Max. Every season, even in the championship, they have faded. Why is that? Because he wants to use a small squad? That might be it. Defensively, not sound enough. Not enough clean sheets. I sound like Tony Gold. I'm sure when he watches or listens to this, he's going to say he will agree with this. Not enough clean sheets. Just not good enough defensively. It's not about the goals being scored. It's about the goals given up. And I want to also say, I think when you play this small squad that Marco plays, Max, I think it wears you over the course of the season. I thought Iwobi played well in a cameo role, but he faded. And I think part of it is that he ran his race. I think a lot of these players ran their race, ran out of gas. So I think part of the story of Fulham's season, and also every season under Marco Silva, even though this was a successful season, my final thoughts are the Fulham fade. That's what this is. It's unfortunate, but it is a fade. We shouldn't have ended 11th, in my opinion. But the table doesn't lie. So in the end, that's the result. They should have done better, Max. That's just the way I feel about that. Anyways, Max, thank you so much for doing the show with me.
Always love doing it, Russ. Last full-time show of the Premier League season. Bittersweet, but always a pleasure to talk football with you. And again, even though we lost, Russ, it feels better to talk about it. I want to say one last stat, because I thought you made a great point about the clean sheets. Wow, yep. We don't clean sheets. How many clean sheets have we kept, Russ, in 38 matches this season?
I don't know.
In the Prem.
How many?
Take a guess. I want to hear your guess, because I think you might be close.
4.
4. You're spot on. We have a winner.
And that's
4
not good
out
enough.
Of 38.
And that's just not good enough, Max. That's not good
Southampton,
enough.
Worst team in the league, 0-0.
Yep.
Against Crystal Palace, 2-0 away from home. Yep. Against Forest in that 1-0 match way back in the beginning of the season with the penalty. And then against Spurs, another one of the worst teams in the league. Okay. 4 clean sheets. That, I think, honestly, when we started off the season, the main conversation was striker.
Yep.
The conversation of this offseason has to be, how are we going to improve the defense? And I believe that's center midfield.
Yep.
And maybe replacing a center back, but we'll see.
I think they need to replace the center back. I actually believe that. But again, we have a lot of time to talk about that.
Yes.
Ton of time. But listen, I want to thank everyone that's been with us this season, and whoever has watched or listened to Cottage Talk over the course of the history of the show, which started in 2011. And I'm going to say this right now. I've not announced it yet. We're just waiting for more details. I said I would before the end of the season, but we're just waiting to basically just confirm some things. But there will be an announcement, hopefully sooner than later, about what is going to happen with the future of Cottage Talk. I'll just leave it at that. It's not going away. I will just tell you that it's going to expand. In what way? I will have more details on that, but I look forward to sharing that information to you. And what I'm going to bring next season is going to be much better than any season I've ever done. I'm telling you that right now. Cottage Talk will be going to the next level, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I look forward to announcing that and bringing you what we're going to be doing. Anyways, well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Max Cohen. I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.